Everyday English is not about big words or difficult grammar. It's about simple sentences you hear again and again. Sentences people use without thinking. Sentences that quietly build fluency. In this video, you're not memorizing English. You're living inside it. So listen calmly. Imagine the situation. And let the sentences feel normal. Let's begin with the start of a normal day. I wake up early every morning. I usually wake up around 6. My alarm goes off and I turn it off. I lie in bed for a few seconds. I feel sleepy when I wake up. I stretch my body slowly. I get out of bed. I make my bed before leaving the room. I walk to the bathroom. I brush my teeth and wash my face. I look at myself in the mirror. I take a deep breath. I feel more awake now. I take a shower. I dry myself with a towel. I get dressed for the day. I choose comfortable clothes. I put on my shoes. I leave my room quietly. I go to the kitchen. I drink a glass of water. I prepare breakfast. I make tea or coffee. I fry an egg or toast bread. I sit down to eat. I eat breakfast slowly. I enjoy the quiet morning. I check my phone briefly. I look at today's schedule. I plan my day in my head. I feel ready to start the day. I clean up after breakfast. I wash the dishes. I wipe the table. I grab my bag. I check if I have everything. I lock the door. I step outside. I take a deep breath of fresh air. I start my day. I walk to the bus stop. I wait for the bus. I check the time. The bus arrives. I get on the bus. I find a seat. I sit near the window. I look outside quietly. I listen to music. I think about my day. I arrive at my destination. I get off the bus. I walk toward the building. I enter the office or school. I greet the people around me. I say hello politely. I smile and nod. I put my bag down. I sit at my desk. I get ready to work. I turn on my computer. I check my emails. I read messages carefully. I reply to important ones. I organize my tasks. I start working. I focus on what I'm doing. I try not to get distracted. I take notes when needed. I stay busy. I ask questions when I don't understand. I listen carefully to others. I share my ideas. I speak clearly and calmly. I try my best. I make small mistakes. I don't panic. I keep going. I learn as I work. I feel more confident. I look at the clock. Time passes quickly. I feel a little tired. I stretch my arms. I stand up for a moment. I take a short break. I drink some water. I relax my mind. I return to my work. I stay focused. Soon it's lunchtime. I stop working for a while. I go out for lunch. I eat with friends or coworkers. I talk casually. I listen more than I speak. I enjoy the conversation. I laugh a little. I feel relaxed. I finish my meal. I return to work. I feel refreshed. I continue my tasks. I work until the afternoon. I feel tired again. I stay patient. I finish what I can. I prepare to leave. I pack my things. I say goodbye. I head back home. I feel relieved. I relax during the journey. I reach home safely. I change into comfortable clothes. I sit down and rest. I take a deep breath. I feel calm again. I reflect on my day. I feel grateful. These sentences may seem simple, but this is how English lives. Not in textbooks, not in exams, but in ordinary moments. After resting for a while, the evening slowly begins. I check my phone again. I reply to missed messages. I scroll for a few minutes. I put my phone away. I don't want to waste too much time. I feel a little hungry. I go to the kitchen. I open the fridge. I look for something to eat. I prepare a small snack. I eat quietly. I drink some water. I feel better. Sometimes I go out in the evening. Sometimes I stay at home. It depends on my mood. If I go out, I grab my keys. I lock the door behind me. I walk outside. The air feels different in the evening. It's cooler and calmer. I meet friends on the way. I say hello. I ask how they are. They say they're doing fine. We talk casually. We don't rush the conversation. We stand and chat for a while. We talk about our day. We talk about small things. If I don't understand something, I ask again. If I don't know a word, I explain it differently. I don't feel nervous. I speak slowly. I stay relaxed. I enjoy the moment. Sometimes I go to a shop. I look around. I ask for help if I need it. I say, how much is this? I listen carefully. I pay at the counter. I say thank you. I leave the shop. Sometimes I go for a walk. I walk without hurry. I look at the sky. I notice the lights. I hear people talking. I feel connected. I clear my mind. I breathe deeply. I feel present. Later I return home. I unlock the door. I step inside. I put my shoes away. I wash my hands. I sit down again. I feel comfortable at home. Now it's time to prepare dinner. I decide what to cook. I take out the ingredients. I wash vegetables. I cut them carefully. I heat the pan. I start cooking. I focus on what I'm doing. I enjoy the process. While cooking, I think about my day. Some things went well. Some things were difficult. I remind myself that it's okay. Every day is different. Dinner is ready. I serve the food. I sit at the table. I eat slowly. I enjoy the taste. I feel satisfied. I talk with my family if they're around. I listen carefully. I share small stories. After dinner, I clean up. I wash the dishes. I dry them. I put everything away. I wipe the counter. I feel organized. Now the night feels quiet. I sit on the couch. I turn on the TV. I watch a show or a video. I don't overthink. I just relax. I enjoy the silence. Sometimes I read. I open a book. I read a few pages. I take my time. I underline new words. I don't stop too often. I keep reading. Sometimes I practice English. I repeat sentences out loud. I speak slowly and clearly. I don't worry about mistakes. I focus on communication. I keep going. I remind myself to be patient. Learning takes time. Progress is not always visible, but it's happening. I check the time. It's getting late. I feel sleepy. I turn off the TV. I stand up slowly. I stretch my body. I go to the bathroom. I brush my teeth. I wash my face. I look tired but calm. I feel ready to rest. I go back to my room. I change into sleepwear. I sit on the bed. I take a deep breath. I think about tomorrow. I set my alarm. I lie down. I pull the blanket over me. I feel safe. I feel relaxed. I close my eyes. The day is over. These are not special sentences. They are normal. And that's why they matter. This is the English you use every day. This is the English people understand. This is the English that builds confidence. Everyday English also lives in conversations. Not long conversations. Short, simple exchanges. The kind that happen naturally. Imagine meeting someone you know. You say hi. You say hello. You ask how they are. You say, how are you doing? They say they're fine. You say, that's good to hear. You don't rush. You speak calmly. You listen carefully. Sometimes you meet someone new. You say, nice to meet you. You introduce yourself. You say your name clearly. You ask their name. You repeat it to remember. You smile. You ask where they're from. You listen to the answer. You say, that's interesting. You ask what they do. You listen without interrupting. You don't need perfect English. You need clear English. Sometimes you don't hear something. You say, sorry? You say, could you repeat that? You say, I didn't catch that. You don't feel embarrassed. It's normal. Sometimes you don't understand. You say, what do you mean? You say, can you explain that? You say, I'm not sure I understand. You stay calm. Sometimes you need time to think. You say, let me think. You say, just a moment. You pause. You continue. Sometimes you agree. You say, I agree. You say, that's true. You say, exactly. You nod. Sometimes you disagree politely. You say, I see your point, but. You say, I'm not sure about that. You say I think differently. You stay respectful. Everyday English is polite. You say please. You say thank you. You say thanks a lot. You say I appreciate it. You say excuse me when passing by. You say sorry when you make a mistake. You say no problem when someone apologizes. These sentences create comfort. Now imagine being at work or school. You say good morning. You say good afternoon. You say good evening. You ask how was your day? You say busy day today. You say I'm working on it. You say I'll get back to you. You ask for help. You say can you help me? You say could you take a look at this? You say I need some advice. You wait patiently. You give information. You say here you go. You say this is the document. You say I've sent the email. You say let me know if you need anything. You make requests. You say could you please? You say would you mind? You say is it possible to? You respond kindly. You say sure. You say no problem. You say I'll do it. You say of course. Sometimes plans change. You say I'm running late. You say I'll be there soon. You say something came up. You apologize. Sometimes you make plans. You say are you free later? You say let's meet tomorrow. You say what time works for you? You agree on a time. Sometimes you cancel. You say I'm sorry I can't make it. You say maybe another time. You say thank you for understanding. Now imagine shopping. You say excuse me. You say how much is this? You say do you have this in another size? You say I'm just looking. You say I'll take it. You say can I pay by card? You say here you go. You say thank you very much. You leave politely. Imagine eating out. You say a table for two please. You say can I see the menu? You say I'll have this. You say could we get some water? You say everything was great. You say can I get the bill? You say keep the change. You say have a nice day. Now imagine being on the phone. You say hello. You say this is me speaking. You say may I speak to? You say please hold on. You say I'll call you back. You say thank you for calling. You say talk to you later. Sometimes conversations end. You say it was nice talking to you. You say see you later. You say take care. You say have a good day. These sentences may feel small, but they carry real life. You don't need complex grammar. You don't need fancy words. You need these simple sentences, clear meaning, calm delivery. This is how people really speak. Everyday English is also about expressing how you feel, not in big speeches. In simple, honest sentences. You talk about your mood. You say I'm tired today. You say I feel good. You say I'm a bit stressed. You say I'm feeling better now. You say I need some rest. You talk about your day. You say today was long. You say today went well. You say it was a tough day. You say I learned something new. You say I did my best. You talk about your opinions. You say I think it's a good idea. You say I don't think so. You say I like this. You say I don't like that. You say I prefer this one. You explain reasons. You say because it's easier. You say it makes sense. You say it feels right. You say it works better for me. You express uncertainty. You say I'm not sure. You say I don't know yet. You say maybe. You say I need more time. You express interest. You say that sounds good. You say I'm interested. You say tell me more. You say that's interesting. You express surprise. You say really? You say oh I didn't know that. You say that's surprising. You react naturally. You express happiness. You say I'm happy to hear that. You say that's great. You say I'm glad. You smile. You express disappointment. You say that's too bad. You say that's unfortunate. You say I'm disappointed. You stay calm. You express concern. You say are you okay? You say is everything all right? You say let me know if you need help. You express encouragement. You say you can do it. You say don't worry. You say take your time. You say I believe in you. You express gratitude. You say thank you so much. You say I really appreciate it. You say thanks for your help. You express apology. You say I'm sorry. You say my mistake. You say I didn't mean to. You express agreement and support. You say I understand. You say that makes sense. You say I'm with you. Now imagine talking about plans. You say I'm planning to travel. You say I want to learn more. You say I hope things improve. You say I'm looking forward to it. You talk about the future. You say maybe next week. You say in the future. You say one day. You stay realistic. You talk about habits. You say I usually wake up early. You say I try to exercise. You say I'm working on it. You say I'm improving slowly. You talk about difficulties. You say it's not easy. You say I'm struggling a bit. You say I need more practice. You stay honest. You talk about progress. You say I'm getting better. You say I feel more confident. You say I'm learning every day. You express limits. You say I can't do that right now. You say I need a break. You say I'm busy today. You ask for understanding. You say I hope you understand. You say thanks for being patient. You talk about everyday choices. You say I'll decide later. You say I'll think about it. You say that works for me. You react to situations. You say that's fine. You say no worries. You say it's okay. You show empathy. You say I know how you feel. You say that sounds hard. You listen carefully. This is how English becomes human. Not perfect. Not polished. Real. These sentences help you express yourself without fear. They help people understand you. They help you connect. Everyday English also lives in how you speak to yourself. Not out loud, but quietly in your mind. You say I can do this. You say it's okay to make mistakes. You say I'm learning. You say I don't need to be perfect. These sentences matter. You remind yourself to slow down. You remind yourself to breathe. You remind yourself to keep going. You face moments of doubt. You say this feels hard today. You say I feel nervous. You say that's normal. You don't run away from it. You continue anyway. You speak even when your voice feels unsure. You speak even when words come slowly. You trust yourself. You build habits. You say I'll practice a little today. You say consistency matters. You say small steps count. You don't rush progress. You say I'll get better with time. You say learning is a process. You stay patient. You start to notice changes. You say that sentence came naturally. You say I didn't freeze this time. You say I spoke without thinking. These moments are quiet, but powerful. You begin to feel comfortable. You say English feels less scary. You say I feel more relaxed. You say I can express myself. You stop comparing yourself to others. You say everyone learns differently. You say my pace is fine. You focus on communication. You say people understand me. You say that's enough. You accept mistakes. You say mistakes help me learn. You say I don't need to stop. You keep speaking. You start conversations. You answer questions. You share opinions. You don't disappear anymore. You stay present. You listen. You respond. You stay engaged. English becomes part of your life. Not something you study. Something you use. You realize something important. You already knew many of these sentences. You just needed to hear them used naturally. English was never missing. It was waiting to be used. So keep listening. Keep speaking. Keep practicing in small moments. Use English when you wake up. Use English when you think. Use English when you talk to others. There is no perfect time. There is only now. You don't need to speak fast. You don't need to sound perfect. You just need to stay. Stay in the conversation. Stay in the sentence. Stay in motion. That's how everyday English becomes fluent English. And that's how English becomes yours.